They re-struggle? Yeah, it broke again.
You know what I re-struggled with? Did I tell you?
Fishnet?
No. No, that's for Japanese. Not the hard nylon, soft nylon. The best things for neck beads, dental floss. Dental floss. And the better quality, oh, it's tough. And the better quality dental floss, the better. Dental floss is as tough as anything you can get. How else can you?
I don't know, I've used them all.
Well, you can't get a lower quality for Johnson & Johnson. If you get the Johnson & Johnson.
Could you do me a humble request?
What's up?
And choose two?
Choose two?
Yeah, just one book.
These are like individuals?
Yeah. I'll keep two in case one breaks.
That's a good idea. Well, we got two different styles.
These two.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect. Give it back. Thank you so much.
Sure. It's Tuesday.
I'm not going to lie.
Third Shakti.
Yes?
Manaji. It's Tuesday and you're here. Isn't that unusual?
Yes, unusual. I figured you would know that.
There must
I
be
had to take my car today because I had something that I had to do.
Okay. As long as everything is more or less normal. I think we need a sheet. Prabhu, do you know the song Jaya Radha Madhava?
Probably.
No, probably not. We have a sheet you can look at. Is it okay? I'm sorry?
That's a positive response, probably.
Positive.
Well, we'll soon find. It doesn't matter. I mean, if he has it. But does Bob know where they are? He does. There he goes. Okay. Looks like we have no drum tonight. So. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Bhagavad Mahamsa Bhagavadgita Astotar to the Shri Mad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BPT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Bhagavadgita Astotar to the Shri Mad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 5th day of December 2017 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary, by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Chapter 9, entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge, page 414, text number 32. Okay. Mam hi parta vipashritya yepisu papayonayah striyo vaishyas tatha shudras tepiyanti param gatim. Mam hi parta vipashritya yepisu papayonayah striyo vaishyas tatha shudras tepiyanti param gatim. Mam hi parta vipashritya yepisu papayonayah striyo vaishyas tatha shudras tepiyanti param gatim. Parashakti. Mam hi parta vipashritya yepisu papayonayah striyo vaishyas tatha shudras tepiyanti param gatim. Mam hi parta vipashritya yepisu papayonayah striyo vaishyas tatha shudras tepiyanti param gatim. Anyone else? Mam, of me, he, certainly, parta, O son of Pritha, vipashritya, particularly taking shelter. Yea, those who, also, who are papayonayah, born of a lower family, striyaha, women, vaishyaha, mercantile people, tatha, also, shudraha, lower class men, te api, even they, yanti, go, param, to the supreme, gatim, destination. Translation. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter of me, though they be of lower birth, women, vaishyas, merchants, and shudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. Purport. It is clearly declared here by the Supreme Lord that in devotional service there is no distinction between the lower and higher classes of people. In the material conception of life, there are such divisions. But for a person engaged in transcendental devotional service to the Lord, there are not. Everyone is eligible for the supreme destination. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.18, it is stated that even the lowest, who are called chandalas or dog-eaters, can be purified by association with a pure devotee. Therefore, devotional service and the guidance of a pure devotee are so strong that there is no discrimination between the lower and higher classes of men. Anyone can take to it. The most simple man taking shelter of the pure devotee can be purified by proper guidance. According to the different modes of material nature, men are classified in the mode of goodness, Brahmins, the mode of passion, Kshatriyas or administrators, the mixed modes of passion and ignorance, Vaishyas or merchants, and the mode of ignorance, Shudras or workers. Those lower than them are called Chandalas, and they are born in sinful families. Generally, the association of those born in sinful families is not accepted by the higher classes. But the process of devotional service is so strong that the pure devotee of the Supreme Lord can enable people of all the lower classes to attain the highest perfection of life. This is possible only when one takes shelter of Krishna. As indicated here by the word vyapashritya, one has to take shelter completely of Krishna. Then one can become much greater than the great jnanis and yogis. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. First, one word about the translation here. Now, Krishna says, Sanapita, those who take shelter of me, though they be of lower birth, women, etc., can attain the supreme destination. Now, in ordinary parlance, that word can attain means they may not attain. They can, but they may not. But that's not what Krishna is saying. He's saying that they will attain. The word is simply yanti, means go. They go to the Supreme. So the idea behind this verse is very simple. It means that Krishna is welcoming everybody. Doesn't matter who you are. Now here he says, gives the example of Vaishyas, Shudras, Striya. But that's just, he's just giving a sample there. It also includes outcasts, papayonis, and anyone else from any walk of life, nationality. Srila Prabhupada proved this. He went to Africa, you know, and there's some fine devotees came out of there, you know. She's from Africa. You may not know that. But aside from that, the native Africans, who normally you would think, well, okay, they have a harder time, but there are wonderful devotees from there. The process of devotional service is so strong, the chanting of the holy name, and Prabhupada here emphasizes the taking of instruction from the pure devotee. This is the leveling factor. This is the universal factor. Is that when the devotees are willing to go out in any environment and to try to uplift others, no matter how helpless it seems to be, then there's always somebody from every group that will be interested. Almost always. And that they will then be representative of that group, and they can then in turn in that area or that nationality or whatever, that culture, can spread the science of Krishna consciousness. So again, yesterday I was mentioning, the whole theme of this chapter is that pure devotional service is supreme over all other processes of elevation. And even if you take to some other process, you're still worshiping Krishna indirectly. Because if Krishna is really the source of everything, if he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of everything, then any boons or any benediction you get from any other source is really coming from him. Even if you don't worship the demigods, but you're just a total materialist, whatever you gain from that is coming from Krishna. You're worshiping him indirectly by worshiping the material energy. This is the vision of the devotee. But the benefit is not the same. If you worship indirectly, then you don't get the real benefit of worshiping Krishna. And you stay immersed in that relative worship. In other words, you stay immersed in the material energy and suffer. So this is a very hopeful verse. It's an ecumenical verse. It's, you know, Krishna with his arms open. As Lord Chaitanya says, here, everybody. He went out, right? He said this is going to spread all over the world. He didn't say just India. Priti viti ati vachinagavadi gram. Priti viti, priti refers to the earth. In every town and village of this earth, my name will be chanted. In other words, Krishna consciousness will be spread. Now, who took that really seriously? Well, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master did. His disappearance day is tomorrow, a very important day. He took it seriously. It became feasible on one level when the technology was there. When you had mass printing of books, you know, just in Lord Chaitanya's day, everything was handwritten. They didn't have the Gutenberg press or anything like that. You know, even though that was invented about the same time. That was in Europe. That was 100 years later it came to India. So how can you have mass book distribution just, you know, by hand copying? Very difficult. You know. So it's all spreading by word of mouth. And then how are you going to get to outside of India? Just to travel within India was difficult enough in those days. So really, it was just theoretical about giving it throughout the world. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur saw the need to engage every means of technology in the preaching. And so he pioneered this mass book distribution. He had presses all over the country, in India, printing out so many books and pamphlets and everything else. And Srila Prabhupada took it to another level by actually traveling personally to the other, and then getting on the plane, going around, and of course book distribution, TV. I was reading this wonderful biography by Shyamasundar Prabhu, his memoirs. I always forget the name. Chasing the rhino with the Swami, something like that. Prabhupada use that analogy. Well, look, you might as well try for something really extraordinary. You might as well chase the rhino, because if you don't catch it, well, it's very difficult to catch the rhino anyway. But if you do, then it'll be, and Prabhupada showed that. He came to the United States, he came to New York, no money, no friends, declining health. Impossible. If you're trying to, get somebody to invest in your business, because it's kind of a business. We're selling Krishna, right? Then Prabhupada would be, they would just reject it. No way. You're a single man. You have no contacts. You have no money. How is this going to work? But it did work because his faith and his purity, and he had his spiritual master behind him. He had Lord Chaitanya behind him, and he had Krishna behind him. And so miraculously it worked. And it worked through the young people of that era, the Americans, who were, in these categories, Papa Yoni, performing all kinds of sinful activities unknowingly, who even believed in sin in those days. And yet they were purified, they were empowered because of their faith in Prabhupada and their seriousness, and they became effective. So this is an encouraging verse, and the whole chapter ends on a very high note. It's encouraging the 32, 33, and 34. As I mentioned several times, 34 is a verse that's really important, because it's repeated at the end of the book. It's repeated in 1865, practically verbatim. It's slightly different. So the theme here is that everyone is welcome. If one is sincere, the key word, vyapashritya. Ashritya, ashram, taking shelter. This means it's a form of the verb, particularly taking shelter, of Krishna exclusively. That's the idea. Then, no matter where you come from, they will come to me. This is the whole point. How encouraging that can be. Nobody is barred. Now, in the corrupted so-called Varnashram system, caste system that's taken over India, I was just listening to a tape, and Prabhupada was explaining how in the early days, I think it was Achyutananda, he was like the first devotee who went to India and lived in India. And maybe with a couple other devotees, they went to South India, and the South India is, you may know, there's a lot of prominence of Brahminical culture and, the serious Brahmins there, But they also let it go to their head. This idea of smarta Brahmins. Smarta Brahmins means too much hung up in the Smriti regulations, not understanding that the essence of Brahminical culture is Vaishnav culture. You can't be an actual Brahmin without being a Vaishnav. Prabhupada would quote this verse, says, how does it go? Janmana jayate shudra, samskarat bhaved dvija, vedapatat bhaved vipra, brahmajanatiti brahmanaha. So everybody is born a shudra. Even if you're born in a Brahmin family, you don't know anything. You have to have training, or what they call samskars, purifying rituals and so many things going on. So everyone's born a shudra, but by samskar, you become dvija, twice born. But if you want to become a vipra, which means learned, then you have to study the Vedas. Vedapatat bhaved vipra. But only those who really know Brahman can claim to be Brahmanas. And we know that Brahman ultimately is Krishna, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, is coming up in the next chapter. So unless you become a Vaishnava, you can't really say that you're an actual Brahmin. But they do. There's so many proud Brahmins. So what they said when when the devotees visited them, they were doing the kirtan and everything, and these Brahmins said, very nice, very nice. And if you really work hard and become purified, then in your next birth you can become a Brahmin like us. You can be born a Brahmin. So they didn't know what to say to that, so they came back, reported to Prabhupada, and said, well, you should have told them that if you become very nice Brahmins, in your next birth you can take birth in ISKCON. Because you see, the danger is in every field, if you become it tends to go to your head. So the essence of Vaishnavism begins with this humility. In other words, it's directly against that false ego principle. This is shown at the beginning. Arjuna, representing the conditioned soul, he's arguing with Krishna. He doesn't want to fight because he's going to have to kill his teacher and his grandfather and all his friends and everything. So this is a typical thing in conditioned life, is that you want to do something. You have a certain, or you don't want to do something, and your intelligence figures out a philosophy to support that what you want to do. Isn't it? Yeah, it's in politics, it's all over the place. I mean, everyone knows that's full of lies, But they want to do something. The crudest thing. They want to make money, and get more money and give it to the people who are backing them. So we'll make up a philosophy how this is good for the people, and this way we'll support it. It's corrupt. It's corrupted. So that happens on every level. You have a certain desire to do something, or you feel you've been cheated. That religion has cheated me. Prabhupada gives the example of the German mothers during the war, during World War II. So many of their husbands, their brothers, their sons, even their fathers went off to war, right? So they've been, they're actually praying like anything to God to return their husbands, brothers, sons, and fathers and everything. But many of them didn't come back. And so then they lost faith in God, you see. You're trying to use religion for material purposes, and when that material purpose is frustrated, you give up the religion. This is going on all over the world because people don't know the truth, the real essence of religion, what real Dharma is. So Prabhupada's, one of his great missions was to at least give the book as it is, so people can understand what real religion is. And then it's up to them. It's free will, whether they're going to follow or not follow. But at least they'll have the option. At least they'll know what the reality, what the truth is. And it's a constant battle. So here, the universal principle of bhakti, of Krishna consciousness, is being expressed. No one is barred, everyone is welcome, but you have to surrender. And how to do that, that's also taught. And surrender means you become free. It's just like a paradox. It seems like an oxymoron. You become free by surrendering to Krishna. If you don't surrender, then you continue to be a slave to the material energy. Like this verse, I haven't shared it in a while, so maybe you'll forget. Kamadinam katina katita palita durni deshas tesham jata maina kadona natrapano prashanti Uttrijaitanati yotapate sampratam labdha buddhistvamayata kshadanamabhayam namnayam svatmadasya. In that one verse, there's a lot of knowledge, instruction. So I put in a little poem. In how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy, yet on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. So it's a very instructive verse. So it really, when I do the poem, I have to kind of tweak a little bit. So I couldn't really do it in complete justice. He says, kama adinam. Kama means lust, etc. I just can't, the lusty desires. But kama means kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsaya. Kama leads to anger. This is right in the Gita. You're always trying to enjoy, eventually you're frustrated, and you become angry. If there's someone to be angry at, you'll be angry at them, otherwise you'll be angry at yourself, become depressed, whatever. In other words, it leads to unhappiness. So, but it's a demand. The desire gets hold of you and pushes you. And then there's the anger. That can push you also. It can push you to do things you would ordinarily never do, as we probably have already experienced. So this is karma, etc. They are like taskmasters, cruel taskmasters. They say, do this, go there, do this, do that. You know, even though your intelligence may be the weak voice of the intelligence, no, no. You know, and the Suta soul is telling you, do something else. You know, it says, no, I'm going for it. So that's the slave drivers. So he's saying, for so long I've obeyed the demands of this lust, anger, etc. They've shown me no mercy, yet on I've gone shamelessly serving them anyway. But now, my intelligence has awoken. How is that possible? By reading Bhagavad Gita, by hearing from a pure devotee, by trying to follow the example association. Then your intelligence becomes strengthened by the transcendental knowledge. And then you can have the strength to say no to these taskmasters. So that's what he's saying here. I'm rejecting that because my intelligence is strong. But that's not the end of it. Then the last line says, oh, fearless shelter. Now why does he use the word fearless? Because anyone who's a little intelligent knows that to be in a situation where you're bound hand and foot by all of these conditional desires is a dangerous position. This is what we've been in. We've been in a dangerous position for time immemorial. This is a verse. This world is dangerous. So Krishna's. Now I'm approaching you. Tvamayatak shadon mabayam. O fearless shelter. Who? Yarupate, the Lord of the Yarus, Krishna. There's no question he's addressing Krishna. And what's the request? Engage me in your service. So the question is, what are we going to serve? Are we going to serve the demands of our lusty minds and intelligence and senses, or are we going to serve Krishna? That's the choice. We have to serve. We're servants. We're just minute little living entities, occupying this material body. And the material body is, the conditioned soul is. There's so many conditions in the body. The body, the mind, the intelligence are full of these things and making you do things. But above all of them is Krishna, and if we can become purified, then that'll provide a countervailing force. That's the choice we have to make. So that's the choice to surrender to Krishna. Here, the benefit is you go to Krishna. What's the benefit? You don't come back here, and you're back home, back to Godhead. So that's the either or that Kierkegaard was looking for. Yeah. Any questions on this particular verse? Often quoted in the introduction, actually. Text 33. Kim puna brahmana punya bhakta raga shayastata anityam sukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. How much more this is so? What is so? Taking shelter of me, you come to me. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmins, the devotees, and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary, miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Purport. In this material world, there are classifications of people. But, after all, this world is not a happy place for anyone. It is clearly stated here, anityam asukham lokam. This world is temporary, anityam, and full of miseries, asukham. Not habitable for any sane gentleman. Or lady, I should say also. This world is declared by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be temporary and full of miseries. That's in chapter 8. Some philosophers, especially Mayavadi philosophers, say that this world is false. But we can understand from the Bhagavad Gita that the world is not false, it is temporary. There is a difference between temporary and false. This world is temporary, but there is another world which is eternal. This world is miserable, but the other world is eternal and blissful. Arjuna was born in a saintly royal family. To him also the Lord says, take to my devotional service and come quickly back to Godhead, back home. No one should remain in this temporary world, full as it is with miseries. Everyone should attach himself to the bosom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead so that he can be eternally happy. The devotional service of the Supreme Lord is the only process by which all problems of all classes of men can be solved. Everyone should therefore take to Krishna consciousness and make his life perfect. Hare Krishna. You know, this is why the Bhagavad Gita makes devotees. You know, Prabhu would often tell, there's so many other English translations that have been around. I read one of them back in '72 before I even knew there was anything like Hare Krishna. But after reading that, a small version, very little commentary, the Penguin version, it's still around, you know, you have no idea what to do. If you just read the translations of this, you're probably not going to get the real idea. But here, you know, Prabhupada is bringing it back, every purport. Everyone should therefore take to Krishna consciousness and make his life perfect. So that's a challenge. It's a should. Prabhupada's books are full of shoulds. Normative. This is called normative idea. I learned that in college, in philosophy. It means you can just be an observer of things and think that you don't have, you know, you don't have to get involved. You know, it's all just a philosophical thing. But actually, real philosophy begins when there's some imperative, when there's an argument and a conclusion, therefore do something. Otherwise, it just becomes a parlor game. Prabhupada says, philosophy without religion is just mental speculation. You can go on forever. Tarko apratishta. There's a verse in the Mahabharata, Prabhupada also quote, the need for Mahajan, the great soul. How do we know what Dharma is? You know, this should be a key human question. How do we know what to do and what not to do for our ultimate welfare? That's an important question. That's what Dharma is. How do we know, though, what real Dharma is? Because there's all kinds of fake Dharma. So, the Mahabharata says, Tarko, there's different ways you can investigate. Tarko apratishta shutiyo vibhinna nasa vrishya samatam nabindam dharma sitattam nihitam guhayam mahajano yena gatas sapanta. A very important verse. Because Western philosophy is just a lot of tarka. It means there's argument back and forth. And a lot of it very dense. You know, my brother got a degree of philosophy from the University of Chicago. And, you know, he introduced me to all these Western philosophers, you know, the old one, you know, the Socrates and Plato, very fascinating, this and that, but then you got the whole European philosophers, Heidegger and Husserl, and a whole bunch of Hume, and anyway, a whole bunch of them. And each of them had a different take on things. Some of them were somewhat religious, some of them were completely atheistic, a whole slew of existential philosophers. So you can break your brain, you know, going through all of that, and at the end of it, you'll never know what to do. What's really... My brother didn't know what to do. He got an MS, or MA in philosophy. And I tried it too. I went to college, and how ironic can it be? I went to NYU, took Philosophy 101, and my teacher was an Indian gentleman who had completely given up Eastern philosophy and was teaching Western philosophy. Anyway, so the idea is, philosophy without religion is just mental speculation. It goes on and on and on. And religion without philosophy is just fanaticism. You know, and we have that. There's all kinds of religion with very little philosophy. So the Mahabharata is saying, Tarko apratishta, all of this arguing back and forth is unsteady. You'll never come to the conclusion. And you want to just, okay, let's go to the Shrutis. But the Shrutis seem to differ here and there in different places. You know, you can read part of it and come up with a Mayavad idea, or read the Vedas and say, look, it says here we should worship Indra and go to Indra Loka. There's a whole section here. You know? And so if you don't have a guide, you're not going to know what to do. So, and as far as philosophers goes, rishis, they can only become well-known rishis by differing with other rishis. So there's a constant battle between them, and you never come to the conclusion. So how do we come to the conclusion? He says, the real truth of Dharma is hidden. Guhyam is very confidential, hidden within the heart of the Mahajans. Therefore, Mahajano yena gatas sapanta. By following the Mahajans, the great souls, realized souls, one can know the proper path. And that's where Prabhupada comes in the whole disciplic succession. You know, otherwise we're adrift. We're adrift, and our mind is our spiritual master. And one who has his mind as a spiritual master has a fool for a disciple. So Krishna is saying here, how much more so? I'm just saying, like, even the Vaishyas, the Shudras, the Papayonis, if they take shelter of me, come to me. How much more this is true for the Brahmins and the devotees and the saintly kings, Rajarshis, Therefore, and then this line here we can take as we can make a t-shirt out of it. Anityam sukam lokam even prapa vijasamam. Having come to this temporary, miserable world, worship me and come back to me, and you'll be the eternal, blissful world rather than a temporary, miserable world. So this is a famous line: everyone should attach himself to the bosom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, take shelter. All right, we're going to read the last verse. Maybe tomorrow we'll have a little review. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi yukvaivam atmanam matparayanaha. Engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. Purport. In this verse it is clearly indicated that Krishna consciousness is the only means of becoming delivered from the clutches of this contaminated material world. Sometimes unscrupulous commentators distort the meaning of what is clearly stated here, that all devotional service should be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Unfortunately, unscrupulous commentators divert the mind of the reader to that which is not at all feasible. Such commentators do not know that there is no difference between Krishna's mind and Krishna. Krishna is not an ordinary human being. He is absolute truth. His body, his mind, and he himself are one and absolute. It is stated in the Kurma Purana, as it is quoted by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami in his Anubhashya comments on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 5th chapter, Adi Lila, verse 41 to 48. Deha dehiva bedo yam neshware vidyate kvachit. This means that there is no difference in Krishna, the Supreme Lord, between himself and his body. But because the commentators do not know this science of Krishna, they hide Krishna and divide his personality from his mind or from his body. Although this is sheer ignorance of the science of Krishna, some men make profit out of misleading people. There are some who are demonic. They also think of Krishna, but enviously, just like King Kamsa, Krishna's uncle. He was also thinking of Krishna always, but he thought of Krishna as his enemy. He was always in anxiety, wondering when Krishna would come to kill him. That kind of thinking will not help us. One should be thinking of Krishna in devotional love. That is bhakti. One should cultivate the knowledge of Krishna continuously. What is that favorable cultivation? It is to learn from a bona fide teacher. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we have several times explained that his body is not material, but is eternal, blissful knowledge. This kind of talk about Krishna will help one become a devotee. Understanding Krishna otherwise, from the wrong source, will prove fruitless. One should therefore engage his mind in the eternal form, the primal form of Krishna. With conviction in his heart that Krishna is the Supreme, he should engage himself in worship. There are hundreds of thousands of temples in India for the worship of Krishna, and devotional service is practiced there. When such practice is made, one has to offer obeisances to Krishna. One should lower his head before the deity and engage his mind, his body, his activities, everything. That will make one fully absorbed in Krishna without deviation. This will help one transfer to Krishna Loka. One should not be deviated by unscrupulous commentators. One must engage in the 9 different processes of devotional service, beginning with hearing and chanting about Krishna. Pure devotional service is the highest achievement of human society. The 7th and 8th chapters of the Bhagavad Gita have explained pure devotional service to the Lord that is free from speculative knowledge, mystic yoga, and fruitive activities. Those who are not purely sanctified may be attracted by different features of the Lord, like the impersonal Brahma Jyoti and localized Paramatma. But a pure devotee directly takes to the service of the Supreme Lord. There is a beautiful poem about Krishna in which it is clearly stated that any person who is engaged in the worship of demigods is most unintelligent and cannot achieve at any time the supreme award of Krishna. The devotee, in the beginning, may sometimes fall from the standard, but still he should be considered superior to all other philosophers and yogis. One who always engages in Krishna consciousness should be understood to be a perfect saintly person. His accidental non-devotional activities will diminish, and he will soon be situated, without any doubt, in complete perfection. The pure devotee has no actual chance to fall down, because the Supreme Godhead personally takes care of his pure devotees. Therefore, the intelligent person should take directly to the process of Krishna consciousness and happily live in this material world. He will eventually receive the supreme award of Krishna. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the most confidential knowledge. So, this word parayana, what parayana is often used. Somebody says Narayana parayana, Vasudeva parayana. Devoted to me. Parayana is a word used to mean like completely sold out and absorbed in. That's why Prabhupada translates it here as completely absorbed in me. So that's a goal that we can aspire for, to become Narayana Parayana, Krishna Parayana, meaning that we don't have anything else going on. In other words, realizing that there's really nothing else that's auspicious in this world but whatever is in the realm of Krishna consciousness, because everything else just prolongs the agony of our life in this material world. So the real intelligent devotee tries to come to that point of mat parayana. And here's, Krishna gives us the formula. Put the mind on me, manmana. Prabhupada would often quote in this regard, Ambarish, King Ambarish. How does it go? Slipping my mind. But the first thing he did was place his mind on Krishna. Then he used his words to speak about Krishna, his ears to hear about Krishna, his hands to serve the deities, his tongue to taste the prasadam. Every sense, every active and knowledge acquiring, were engaged in the service of Krishna. And therefore he became extremely advanced, even though he was a king. In other words, it's difficult with all of going on and ruling a kingdom to be in samadhi, but he did it in practical devotional service. So he put our mind on Krishna by mostly hearing and chanting, and become his devotee. The devotee means concisely savopadi vinimuktam tatpadatveena niyamanam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchate. This is the definition of bhakti given near the beginning of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So what does it mean? Sava upadi vinimuktam. Upadis are bodily designations by which we identify ourselves, just like Krishna was speaking in text 32. Women, Vaishyas, Shudras, these are all upadis, these are designations. We're all spirit souls, we're all equal. When we identify with this external tabernacle and its condition, then we're not identifying ourselves purely as Krishna's servants. Krishnera Sodaboy, Jivera Sodaboy, Krishnera Nityadas. This is Lord Chaitanya's famous statement, that the real Swarup, or real inner nature of everyone, is to be a servant of Krishna. So, upadis, being free of all of these false designations, and just identifying ourselves as spirit souls, servants of Krishna. Tatparatveena nirmalam. Nirmalam means free of any mala, any impurity. Then what do? Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam. With your rishikas, with your senses, both knowledge acquiring and active, you serve Rishika Isha, Rishikesha, the master of the senses. In other words, you're using your senses to serve the master of the senses. This is the definition of bhakti. So that's what Bhagavad Bhakta means. Now, the history of this verse, the translation, was that the first Bhagavad Gita we had didn't have that little essential phrase there, become my devotee. So this was fixed in 1983. So this is one of the important restorations. Then what? Madhyaji, worship me in all kinds of ways. This calls to mind deity worship and other ways. And namaskaru. The word nama means not mine. When you offer your obeisances sincerely, it means this body, mind, words, intelligence, everything I have is not mine, it's yours. Whether it's your spiritual master or the Krishna you're bowing down to. That's the real inner significance of the word namaha. Not mine. I've been falsely claiming through the false ego these things, and now I realize it all belongs to you. So let me engage it in your service. Teach me how. So all of those four, thinking of Krishna, becoming his devotee, worshipping him, offering obeisances, then you're sure to come to me. Yukta evam. You'll be linked to me in this way. And Mam evaishyasi. He's speaking directly to Arjuna. He's speaking directly to us. You will come to me because your soul is dedicated to me. Atmanam atparayana. So this verse is repeated in practically verbatim in 1865, but it's a little more personal there because Krishna says, Manmanabhavamadagdo manjadi mame vaisasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. Here, you're on the platform of yoga, yukvaivam, but by the 18th chapter, it's a little different, but the emphasis is the same, the idea is the same. So, this is the end of this 9th chapter. Maybe we'll review it on tomorrow, which would be a very auspicious day, the disappearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Any discussion on what we read tonight? Yes, Prabhu.
When you read, engage your mind always in thinking of me, being completely absorbed in me, that to me here is like an obsession. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I think it's beautiful when, for example, you're romantically in love with someone, and everything about life reminds you of them. Like, oh, that person looks like the person I'm in love with, or oh, that my favorite person would like to hear that music and this and that, So, what I'm trying to say is that isn't there like something inherently unhealthy about obsession in that regard?
Well, no. It's unhealthy to be obsessed with something that is self-destructive. In other words, obsessive compulsive behavior, which is it's a distortion of your natural consciousness. But to be absorbed, the fact is, if we understand the philosophy, that everything is related to Krishna. This is what we've been learning in the 7th, 8th, and 9th chapters. That what is this world? It's a creation of God, and His energy is everywhere. So, really being God conscious doesn't mean that you then don't relate to anyone else. It means that you see the relationship with everyone else in terms of God consciousness. In other words, how you can relate to someone else either on a material level or a spiritual level. On a material level, there's someone who you want to exploit, or you want to, as you say, love. There's something going on there, but materially, that can turn into the opposite. If it's on the mental platform, it's not on the spiritual platform. But the true devotees, the pure devotees, they actually feel connected to everyone, not even just human beings, every living entity, because they see them as part of God. And so they try to give Him the greatest gift, which is Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, he was very personal with everyone. And, there was nothing obsessive. Obsessive to me means that it's a restriction in your mind. It's something that's kind of weighing on you, But there's no how could I say it? Bad reaction, unhealthy reaction to being Krishna conscious. The most absorbed devotees are those who are most peaceful. They're joyful within themselves. They're empathetic and sympathetic to others because they try to help. It's like a doctor, Suppose there's an epidemic going on, and a doctor has discovered the remedy. He has some medicine, So if he's a good doctor, he's going to try to give that out as far as possible. Someone may say, "Oh, you're really, you're working too hard." He said, "No, people's lives depend on it." So the great devotee, like Srila Prabhupada, he worked like anything in order to give this remedy of Krishna consciousness for the disease of birth and death. So that, to me, it doesn't fall under the idea of obsession. You actually see the reality of everything, and the world becomes that much more fascinating and wonderful in a healthy way, because you see God's hand in everything. The Gita is like that. You see chapter 10, you see the ocean. I don't just see the ocean. Krishna says, "Oh, the majesty and the power of the ocean, that reflects my power." You see the sun, that's Krishna's eye. He's watching everything. So the whole world becomes sacred, in a sense. You're never out of touch with Krishna. It's not just ordinary consciousness. Everything you see the hand of God working everywhere. So it's a healthy kind of state of consciousness. That's actually how it works.
I have a comment.
Yes.
To me, obsession is temporary. You're obsessed with things that are temporary. Whereas if you constantly think of Krishna, that's eternal. And it'll not go away.
The thing I like, it has a bad reaction. In other words, being obsessed with something is kind of is mental illness, you know. In other words, it's not wholesome, right? People get obsessed with, yeah. But being absorbed in Krishna, it all has a good reaction. Just like the devotee, you know, those of us who have been doing this for a long time, I'm not going to say, you know, the number of years, but many, many, many years. It's like, where's the, you know, but if someone, where's the bad reaction? I was in the laundry the other day. My laundry down here in Grand Avenue, you know, and they have a magazine, The Surfer. So I got to confess, I was looking, you know, flipping through, waiting for my clothes to dry. And there was the cover, now the cover, the reason why it says addiction. Addiction to surfing. And they had little statements. Nobody can read very much. So all of this, a lot of ads, a lot of water, a lot of guys on the surfboards. And then they have an article, which is like a few quotes, you know. And there were old timers. This old guy looked like to be maybe at least 60, 65. And he was reminiscing about he spent his entire life, you know, chasing the wave, this and that, you know. And this is what it came to. But he thought it was pretty wholesome, you know, because he was outdoors all the time. It's an addiction. You can become totally addicted to that. I don't even go in there with no water, you know. Yeah.
What is a bad reaction? What would constitute a bad reaction?
Well, the bad reaction to that, probably, you know, he would take morning walks on the sea, and he would talk about these surfers, and he called them sufferers. And the bad reaction is ultimately that you want to surf, you want to go in there, you become a fish. You're wasting the human form of life. That's a bad reaction. Yeah.
Just because he's talking about obsessions, we have a lot of devotees who now surf if they're younger. Usually people get older. They can't surf anymore because they have arthritis, or they have an injury,
Yeah.
back. I mean, that's just, when they get to be their 60s, you know, we're talking about people who know Krishna and SanDiego, Bhagavad, so many.
Yeah.
But it's not an obsession, it's like kind of like a sport, it's good for your physical body. Obsession, like Dravida was saying, is something negative. You know?
I see obsession as kind of tunnel vision, where you're missing out on whole life, and you're just, you know, doing one thing over another, and you're not happy about it. It doesn't produce joy. You know what I mean? You're bound by that. I mean, I don't know, you know, I'm not a psychologist. The relation between what is an obsession as opposed to an addiction. Addiction generally means something that physically gets you, some drug or something, you know. But it's true, but everyone knows, you know, sex addicts, they're video game addicts. Now they're worried about kids on the cell phones. They've shown, you know, they've done experiments. Okay, we'll give you $100, you know, they're doing some test. And you can't have your cell phone for 1 day. And what happens, right? And they become, huh?
Anxiety.
Yeah, they become anxious, missing out. I'm missing out. You know, what are they saying about me on Facebook or whatever? You know, this is unhealthy. You know, but those who become addicted to or obsessed with Krishna, you know, what's an addiction? Well, okay, I'll tell you addiction. 12-hour kirtan. But you know. Usually 12-hour kirtan doesn't mean you sit there for 12 hours. You get up, take a little prasadam, take a shower, come back down, you know, but you spend hours and hours kirtan. What's the result? People come out, you know, they're peaceful, you know, in other words, there was no bad reaction. Those of us who have been doing this, yeah, you can't do the same services, but oftentimes you can at least chant, you can come to the temple, you know what I mean? In other words, you're still into Krishna, but you can't do what you once did, you know, physically or whatever, you know. But, so the idea is that, unlike, you know, physical addictions or anything like that, or even unhealthy relationships, which can be very painful ultimately, the relationship with Krishna, which is really what we're talking about, And the attraction to Krishna has only good results in your life. And so that kind of absorption and that kind of one-pointedness is very wholesome. It's a mystery how that is true, but it actually works that way.
So then why do people have bad experiences?
Because they're fighting it. They're so conditioned that they don't fully surrender. And they become conflicted. Just like Arjuna was conflicted at the beginning here of the book, the whole first chapter. And it was a bad reaction. He was trembling, he was unsure of himself, he was crying, he dropped his bow, he was paralyzed. But he came out of it by surrendering to Krishna, taking the results. And then when he fought, he was everything was in tune. In other words, he was totally committed and he wasn't conflicted anymore. And this is the reason why devotees have problems, is because through bad association, inattention or something, they falter on the path and they do things or get back into habits that they didn't really get cured. So it is a struggle sometimes. I'm not going to deny that. But the first lesson is, we learn, nothing is lost. Even if you fall away, Krishna is saying right here. So, Chipram bhavati dharmatma. Quickly you'll become righteous. Now how quickly that is, it may take another birth. But once you realize, hey, I've been through millions of births. I realized I wasn't able to do it. I came late. Maybe I was 45 years old. I can't give up all the bad habits. I'm not referring to anyone in this room. But I mean, I came at 25, and I'm not. I wish I came at 18 or 5. But it's not easy to overcome all of the habits we've accumulated over lifetimes. The conditioning is very deep. So therefore, you find devotees being involved and not being involved, coming and going. But overall, the ultimate result is it's good. And now we have to adjourn because we're going to have our kirtan. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. See how anyone can sit on this seat for that one. How could I give class like that? Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Okay, anyone want any prashadam?
Yes, please, thank you. Appreciate it.
What's your name?
Octavio.
Octavio. Welcome, Octavio. And your name is Dravida Prabhu.
I'll try to remember that. Number is better with name.
Me too.
Yeah.
You've been here before?
Oh, yeah, I've been here like, now for 3 years.
Oh, there. Okay. Would you like to be? How about Thursday? Who would come?
So, I've been working out like nights, starting from 6.
I see. It's a little difficult.
Yeah.
Well, then good, you can make it tonight. Night off.
Yeah, so the thing is that I was recently,
Oh, you're unemployed. These guys, they're kind of still doing it, you're pretty much doing it. Good. Well, you like one of these sweets? There's a lot of, made by that lady right there. You got it, great. We have milk, or keeping covers on it. Let's go with the game. I'm gonna go with the game. No, you don't want to do it. Hey, you got a turtleneck on, you know. I see you with the turtleneck, I know it's. Yeah, not you. Octavio has an 8.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll remember that. Thanks.
Hare Krishna. Next, come on, Bhagavad, we shy. What was that last night? That was so impressive. Did you have any?
Also, we just eat.
Yeah, you can grab all that now. Stand to our chair, or whatever you want to do. We usually just hang out. That was good. You made it 2 weeks in a row. When's the last time you were here? Yeah.
I was here on Sunday.
I know. You been in this program before?
Well, yeah, you were serving food.
Yeah.
So it was last Sunday.
Oh, that's Sunday, yeah. Yeah, do you remember the classes?
Yeah.
It was like.
I
feel like I used to see you.
I've been here like a couple of times,
Yeah.
like years ago, so.
Yeah, I remember seeing you a couple of times at the class. And many times at the lounge.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Morning and night, huh? Morning and evening program for you.
Yeah.
What did you do for work? Were you in school?
Well, I was a janitor. I went to school years ago for this. I'm just gonna find some kind of like career or something. New website, go to that.
Yeah.
I'm not really too like.
Anything, David?
Yeah.
Where are you from?
Chula Vista.
Yeah. Look kind of familiar. You been here before?
To the.
Fine. Okay.
Like over the years, you know.
So I call